Hey y'all, it's Dr. Jenny from the block, and if you're new here, welcome to my channel, and if you're returning, welcome back. So today I want to talk about sobriety, and specifically sobriety from alcohol. This video has been inspired by my own personal journey with sobriety, also inspired by the people in my life who have reached out to me. So on my personal social media, I've been sharing a bit about this journey so far, and people have reached out to share their stories, and I've also reached out to people who are navigating sobriety to hear their stories. People have also asked about some of the zero alcohol alternatives I've been using, and it's got me thinking that I think it's just an important moment to talk a little bit about alcohol use and mental health and well-being. So, though, before we jump into this video, I want to say a couple things. First and foremost, this is not a judgy or preachy video. I am not here to convince anyone to stop drinking. That is not my business. That's not what this video is for. This video is for people who are sober curious, so people who are kind of wanting to understand what sobriety feels like. It's also for people who are currently navigating sobriety, and for people who might be questioning if alcohol use is impacting their mental health. And so I just want to set those things out there at the forefront so there's no confusion. So why sobriety? I think there's a couple reasons, and I could split it up into like personal reasons and observational reasons. And if I'm thinking about personal reasons, over the last few years, I've noticed that my alcohol use has increased, and I'll talk more about like what I think has, contributed to that. But I think I had been noticing that alcohol was starting to impact me in ways that I was feeling very uncomfortable with. And I really took a step back and recognized that I was actually leaning at times on alcohol to help me cope with some things that have been going on for me in my life. And so my choice to engage in sobriety came from that place, but also my desire to give myself a mental and emotional reset. And I have some goals for myself, and it does require that I really reduce my alcohol use. But the second reason why I think it's important to talk about this, especially on my platform, is that I'm on social media, but I'm usually on social media for the fun, for the laughs, for information sharing, etc. But as a person, I've always been observant. I'm very perceptive and intuitive. I think that's how I show up in the world, and I think that's why I'm good at what I do. And so, now that I've been sober and kind of taken a step back out of all the chaos of life, I've really noticed that many people are drinking a lot. People that I know through associates, etc., to the point where I've seen people even post like they're too sober to deal with life, essentially. And I've recognized that, on social media, I say that people either post what they've been through, what they're going through, what they aspire for, or the jokes. But usually within those three categories, you can kind of pick out a lot of information about what people are experiencing in life, and you can see how people are choosing to spend their time. And so like I said at the beginning, it's not a judgment call or anything like that, but I'm recognizing that there are people who are really going through things who may not recognize that they're leaning on alcohol as a coping mechanism. And yeah, I want to speak to that. So let me share a little bit about my own relationship with alcohol. I won't start from the very beginning, because I think many of us started drinking, maybe as teenagers. I really didn't start drinking until I went to college, but we won't focus on that part because that's in the past. I had moved on. So 2020, I think like many people, I started to drink more again. Prior to that, I was maybe drinking once a week, and that was it. Once the pandemic, the lockdown came, I realized that I was confused about what was going on, uncertainty, and other things started to happen in my life that I think drove my liquor consumption up at rates that I hadn't seen since I was in college. I guess I want to speak to the emotional piece too. From 2020, I would say, until about May of 2023, there were several really painful things that happened in my life. Even thinking about it now, I'm a little emotional. There was the loss of several relationships that were important to me. There was transitional things that happened. So I had been living on the East Coast, and then my grandmother was diagnosed with dementia, I think last year or late 2022, and my grandma is like my best friend. It's even hard to think about it now. She's fine, but dementia, for those who have loved ones who are navigating that. It's a really tough disease. So many things were happening in my life, and me moving home and the pandemic restrictions easing felt like, okay, this is my chance, to be connected to my home, coming back to my hometown, little city, coming back to friends and family that were here. I had put a lot of well-being on this transition, because prior to moving home, so 2020, 2021, I was in a relationship at the time that was very harmful emotionally. A lot of things had happened, and that was also one of the contributors as to why my alcohol use skyrocketed, because when you are going through painful things, alcohol numbs you, you're in the moment, so you think for that time period your problems don't exist. And so it started then, 2021, I come back home, I started reconnecting with people, and it felt like I jumped right back into where I was when I was 18 in 2007. It just felt like I was getting back into the mix, and I was drinking excessively now that I can take a step back. But it was to cope and hide from those really painful things that were happening at the same time, because 2022 is when a couple relationship fallouts happened. And one particular one, there were a couple that felt really traumatic and really painful. And I didn't feel stable either. As I'm moving back, I'm trying to rebuild a life over here, and lots of things were happening. I started to recognize in myself that alerted me that something was wrong, is that I became very destabilized emotionally. It was getting to a point where, 40% chance when I drank that I would lash out, have a meltdown, end up crying, end up cussing people out that I care about. And it got to a point where I started to be scared to drink. I should have really known then that that was a big, big red flag. I think other contributors that really amplified my feelings is that I was also in environments and situations that I hadn't been in. My life had changed so drastically that now that I look at it, I took a couple steps back. And yes, I had fun. There was plenty of fun that I had, but there was also plenty of tears, lots of emotions, anger, etc. And I almost jeopardized other relationships that are really important to me. I want to say that I think when people are drinking to cope and to numb, one of the things we don't do well is take personal accountability. And so thinking about the mental health piece, I want to say a couple of things that are it just is what it is. Alcohol can worsen your symptoms of depression and anxiety. And I don't even necessarily mean clinical diagnosis. Anybody can feel anxious or depressed. Alcohol can exacerbate that. Alcohol can numb you, but when you are sober, your problem still exists. And whatever the root cause of that, unless you address it, you're gonna keep feeling like you need to drink in order to have fun and have this and that. And I just want to name that. And over time, chronic alcohol use changes your brain. It changes your mood. It really impacts you. So I just want to throw those pieces in there, and I can always make another video talking more about the science piece, but I want to keep it real. There's no such thing as a good drinker. Some people will be like, oh, they hold their liquor well. And even if externally the person seems cool, they're a good time, they're a vibe, internally also, liquor's wrecking your body. It's a toxin. And so when you're peeing a lot, or you throw up, or you're sweating when you're drinking, it's because your body, your liver is fighting so hard to get that out of you. I just want to put that out there, because alcohol, it may feel good in the moment to take your troubles away, but there are so many consequences that come from it. And so, I recognize that people don't address the root issue, and I feel for y'all, because it's hard. I think it's really hard to look at an issue in the face and say, hey, how am I contributing to it? For a long time, I couldn't, especially for one situation, I kept trying to explain, I don't know why they don't understand, or this or that. And I realized that I wasn't in a place mentally and emotionally, because I was numbing so often, to take a step back and really take ownership of my role in the conflicts that I was having with people, and really be able to recognize my suffering was very much in my control. There were things that I could do, even feeling at my lowest, that I could do to reclaim myself and reclaim my life. And once I started easing away from drinking, I was able to process the trauma and the pain and the feelings that I was holding, And I was able to create more separation from those people, circumstances, situations, etc., environments that were exacerbating my trauma. I was then able to do that really difficult work of, self-forgiveness for the roles that I played in harming others. I was able to forgive myself for many things, but I was also able to affirm myself and my personhood, and to recognize that, I'm a good person, I'm a human person, and I'm trying to figure this out like everyone else. And when I took that step back, I wasn't in the blaming thing where it's them. I was able to be honest with myself and also be compassionate towards myself. And so I haven't drank in a little over 2 months, and I can tell you the mental clarity for me has been mind-blowing. I've been able to manage my mood again. I'm not anxious. Like for a year and a half, almost 2 years, I was an anxious wreck. I was thinking about everything that could go wrong. I would have difficulty sleeping, where I would be sleeping maybe 4 or 5 hours a night. I wasn't ruminating. I'm able to understand myself more deeply. I feel so elevated. And, I really want to encourage folks to think about, like, what could you experience if you decrease your alcohol use? I think a couple questions that I would encourage you all to ask yourself is, when you are drinking, like, how many times a week are you drinking? How do you feel when you're sober? What are some of the consequences that you've experienced from alcohol use? Have you received feedback from other people about yourself when you've been drinking? What does sobriety feel like? When you're sober, how do you feel when you're sober? Are you bored? Are you sad? Are you angry? Are you anxious? Are you stressed? These questions can start to help you really consider what role alcohol plays in your life and what areas of mental health or wellness do you need to address so that you can be your best self. I realize it's a big social thing for many of us, and what's really sad to me to see is that people don't know how to have fun without liquor. And I really feel like when you're drinking to have fun, you need to reevaluate that relationship with alcohol. I've been having a ball. I've been going out, hanging out with friends, doing social things without being drunk. And it's been a game changer for me. I feel like when we're numbing with alcohol, we're really not living in the real world. We're not in our bodies. We're not within ourselves. We're not giving ourselves an opportunity to grow, to thrive, and to experience being fully human, because we always have this filter of liquor, and that impacts how we see the world. And so I could go on, but I want to pause there, and I'll share more about my journey as I continue to heal. But yeah. Oh, and I also want to name, with the questions, evaluate your social circle. Sometimes with liquor, it's easy to group ourselves with people who are drinking and encouraging our drinking and all that stuff. And I think if you feel like you're numbing out and coping, you really need to take a step back and think about who are some other people maybe you need to be around so that you can expand your experience and expand your experiences, to expand your thought process, to get different perspectives and viewpoints. Because once I kind of switched up who I was spending a lot of time with, so many positive things came out of that. So I do want to mention that because I think that's super important. But I'm truly going to pause here. Please let me know your thoughts and your questions. I'm going to make a couple more videos about sobriety because it's a journey. And like I said, I could say a lot more, but I'm going to pause here because I'm sure I've been running my mouth. But per usual, I want to thank you all for taking the time to check me out. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Turn on that notification bell so you can be alerted when I'm dropping these gems. And I'll catch you in the next video. Until then, take care. Okay? Bye.